ask questions.
What is? Come on. Be cool.
Today's not over yet. Yeah, I'm just gonna fall apart and today would be long. All right, let's get through this real quick. Ready, guys? Please, all right, so a lot of this test, on this last one too, a good chunk of it, for this part is gonna be vocabulary, stuff like that. What are these things called? Kind of hard to do critical questions in some of these. So an acute injury or athletic injuries are caused by sudden trauma like what? Yeah, impact injuries, right, in sports. Contusions, strains, sprains, tears, fractures. What else is in here? I mean, I know we're looking at the musculoskeletal injuries. Oh. That's what I thought it was on. Blunt tissue trauma, disruption of tendons and ligaments will go to these and fractures of bony structures. These are things we're going to cover. But what else would be in here aside from those? There's contusion, strains, sprains, tears, and fractures. But what else? Not just neuromuscular. I mean, musculoskeletal. Sorry.
As far as athletic injury?
Yeah. What else is really big right now? In the news a lot with athletic injuries.
Like brain injury?
Yeah, concussions, right? And you really hear about it with sport right now.
Football.
Football. But what sport do more kids get concussed in than football, actually? Soccer, actually.
Whoa.
Because soccer, they're not wearing any what?
Oh.
Even though they're not allowed to head the ball until they get to high school, right? I think, anybody know the rules? You can you in high school? You can in high school, right? Okay. Well, I just said yes, no, because when you get in the older kids, it gets very aggressive, the sport, right? And you
Yeah.
get people running into each other and you don't have any type of helmets on. It's actually, they're finding out they're more. Concussion. In terms of concussions, what is worse? MMA fighting, I don't know why I didn't cover this before. MMA fighting or boxing?
MMA.
What are you gonna change your mind on me? Which one? Boxing or MMA? Who said MMA? Who said boxing? Boxing is way more. MMA is a lot of kicks to the body, a lot of body work. Boxing is just constant
Hits to the face.
boom, boom on the head. All right, overuse injuries, gonna be chronic injuries. The main one you're gonna be looking at is gonna be what?
Osteoarthritis.
And what is osteoarthritis?
The wearing down of the joint.
Wearing down of the cartilage first. The
Cartilage.
cartilage on your joints is the main part, and then the bone later on.
Yeah.
Okay? And these include stress fractures. What's a stress fracture? Let me know what those are. So it results from constant high levels of physiological stress without sufficient recovery time, overuse injury. So what is it? What happens with it?
It's like to get like little cracks maybe like in the
Little
sheets
cracks.
and stuff with the impact.
Yeah, a lot of them are impacts. Some of them are also chronic stress or strain on something that the muscles just can't cope with over long periods of time, so they start relying on the bone more.
Oh.
And then you start getting these microfractures and stuff in there too. All right, contusion is a lot of people get these confused, and they're very similar. So let's look at these carefully because you need to be confusing on a test. A contusion is a bruise, right? And what is a bruise?
It's a buildup of.
Be careful. Be careful with these.
Ooh.
Be careful. These things are a little bit different than.
Isn't it buildup of blood in a certain area? Like.
An injury is soft tissue that results from direct trauma and usually caused by striking a body part against a hard object. It is bleeding under the skin, broken blood vessels. So it's localized bleeding under the blood vessels, right? You get a little bruise right here. So what's the difference between that and a hematoma then? And a lot of times they use it interchangeably.
Oh yeah. Maybe the size, the amount of blood.
Mostly going to be the amount. It's also going to be the fact that this is going to be localized, right? Right where those little vessels break. So if I go bam, hard enough. Oh, I do that hard
The
enough. I can
hematoma is
myself-
gonna, it's gonna be a bubble.
A little bruise, right?
Right.
But is it going to leach out into the tissue?
No.
It's just going to be right where the vessels break, right? Hematoma is a large area of local hemorrhage leaking into the surrounding tissue. So sometimes you'll see people who get really big she showed you a picture of a person, that they fell and hit their heads, they got a big, what they call a goose egg, right? That's a big hematoma, right? You've got a lot of fluid that's leaking into that tissue, it's causing swelling. And then, have you ever seen anybody that's had one of those on their head?
Yeah.
What happens to them about a week later?
The bruising?
They have everything.
Aside from that,
Short-term memory loss.
they're, usually the entire side of their face starts to turn green.
That's why.
Because that fluid that is leaked out of the tissue from the big hematoma is starting to move and settle down and gravity runs through
Oh.
their face. And I'll see if I can find a picture of the person that has it and show it to you. Pretty gruesome. And then a laceration is just what?
Cut.
A cut. A cut to the skin that is torn and its continuity is disrupted. It could be a tear or it could be a nice cut or anything else, right? That's a laceration. So that's a what?
Bruise. Contusion.
A bruise, contusion, good. That's a what now?
Hematoma.
See what I'm talking about? When you start getting this green, this kind of leakage, you get more leakage of the fluids and blood into the surrounding tissues. That's more hematoma. I mean, they're almost splitting hairs, right? But just remember, a bruise is gonna, contusion is gonna be localized. That's a laceration. I took out the really gruesome one. I was looking for these.
Why was it
Yeah, oh,
best?
one gave me the willies, and that's pretty tough to do. Had a picture of the guy's foot. The entire bottom of the foot had been, what's that term? No, but it's
Fillet?
It's like fillet almost. It's kind of like that. That's what it looked like. Except for the toes where it was just barely hanging off. That
Oh,
wouldn't bother
cool.
you?
No.
Man, it's not like you gave me the willies. That gave me the willies right there. All right. Types of joint injury, strains, and people get these wrong all the time.
Oh, yeah.
A strain is a stretching injury to what?
Muscle.
Muscle or musculotendons, where they can attach. Units caused by mechanical overload. A sprain, on the other hand, is what? Ligaments. Overuse of strain involves ligamentous structures surrounding the joint. Pain and swelling subside more slowly than in a strain. How come? You get to look it up first. How come?
Kind of passes
You cannot pass it on to there.
out.
Why?
On a sprain?
Why would a sprain take longer to heal than a strain?
Isn't it because joints don't have?
You can actually kind of tear right and has to fuse back together.
You can tear them, yeah. Sometimes you can show me. You can get pretty bad strain too.
Because you have the 3 levels of sprain, grade 1, 2, or 3, that's just depending on the.
On how much stretching, you get a little bit of tearing, you get complete separation, right? That's part of it. That's a big part of it. What's another part?
Is it because they take longer to heal because joints don't have like their own blood supply like muscles
Not
do? and
joints,
stuff?
but
Ligaments.
Ligaments.
No, that's good. That's where we're going on both of them. Even not looking at the grading on it there. It's poor blood supply to ligaments. Ligaments just take a long time to heal. Tendons don't get much either, but muscle get a lot, right? So mainly it's gonna be low, poor blood supply. And those are gonna take a long time to heal. Ligaments can take how long to heal? Months,
Months.
right? Something else, I'll get to that in a minute. All right. Caused by abnormal excessive movement of the joint. Now, would a complete tear be a sprain?
Let's say grade 3.
They say it's a grade 3. I kind of don't like what that is because to me, tears are making a part darn. But yeah, so we'll look at the grading on there. Completely, it's grade 3. Grade 2 is just a slight tear, and then grade 1 is just a stretch.
Like your regular swollen.
Great. Now, that's what I was gonna bring up. What is better for sprains and strains, hot or cold?
Oh, I've always been confused.
Huh?
Always been confused.
Cold is only good at the beginning, and then after a certain amount of time, I believe like 6 hours after the injury, then switch to like heat.
What do you guys think? You all agree?
Yeah, that's what my
I
track
don't know.
coach said.
Huh?
So that's what my track coach said.
Then what, ice first, then heat?
Yeah, I used to spray it on.
There's some people now that come out, some other people come out and said that just ice is not good at all.
No.
All icing is really supposed to do is what?
So
The swelling.
get the swelling down, right? Increase inflammation, but inflammation is an inflammatory response, which is the beginning of the what process?
Healing.
The healing process, so now there's some people are saying that it actually slows recovery down even a little bit at first. Now, again, don't want to do that for me, do your own research on that, and look it up, I'll find the article for you.
I had
But
a friend.
It makes sense to me.
I had a friend's dad whose dad had sprained or strained. I don't know what he did, and he put the wrong thing, like it was hot or cold, and it tore. It made it worse.
Made it worse?
Yeah, like I don't know if he did like the wrong thing at the. I don't know.
That's kind of weird.
It was a long. Oh, maybe.
It'll get more rigid and harder to.
Yeah, because there's too much cold, and it can actually make it, so yeah. That's what this one article, it was from orthopedics, from OOC, College of Orthopedic Surgeons. Take what you will, see if I can find the article for you all. A dislocation is what? Would it be displacement or separation of bone ends of the joint with loss of articulation?
Well, that like what it sounds
You
like.
can't move it, so like if your shoulder outside of place, you won't be able to articulate it.
So what's one of the most common dislocations?
Shoulder.
Shoulder, right? And we'll talk about the shoulder, why it's such a pain in the you know what for that.
Fucking labor was a piece of shit.
But there's a reason for it though, too, and that's the problem. What else can you dislocate? Give me examples. Huh? What? Hip? Ankle?
Fingers, right?
Finger? Almost any joint, any type of joint can dislocate, right? Some people dislocate their finger. And I have a friend who's, we'll talk about the rotator cuff later until we get to that. All right, loose bodies are a small piece of bone or cartilage that is broken off and they get stuck inside of a joint. They're gonna be pieces of bone or cartilage that are sort of rattling around inside of a joint. And it's gonna have to be a joint that's got a pretty good what? Synovial cavity in there, right? Now, what would that be? Why would that be problematic?
Are you talking like bone spur?
Those were the growths you need. These are actually little fragments that are broken off. So they're kind of floating around. Think about the side of your knee down here. So if you get little bits of the bone that are just kind of floating around inside of that cavity,
Uh-huh.
how could that cause issues?
How could that cause what?
Issues.
Oh,
Cause swelling and then you.
Tearing.
Yeah, it's just gonna increase
Friction.
strain and stress on the joint, more friction, everything else, gonna cause more and more problems. Sometimes they'll go in and take it out if they get really bad. Bone spurs, on the other hand, are what?
What's that?
Bone spurs. Those are usually little calcium buildup things that are gonna start.
how can that happen?
What, this?
Yeah.
Injury, trauma injury can break
Oh.
off little bits. I've got, my dog bit the tip of my finger off.
Off?
Well, it flapped over
Oh.
and it came back.
Okay.
But there's a little, I have a little, it's not in the joint per se, but the little tips floating around inside of it. Same thing can happen when you're
Oh,
on.
man.
Really did it like, had a time in
Yeah.
Now, everybody's favorite. Why is the rotator cuff such a pain? That's a bad idea.
Okay, so both my shoulders are messed up, but it's not the rotator cuff. The rotator cuff is like a byproduct of my labrum. My labrum sore, so my shoulder rotates out of place.
Mhm.
And when my shoulder rotates out of place, it puts a strain on my rotator cuff. That's how my rotator cuff got.
Got damage. So what is rotator cuff?
It controls.
Well, what is it?
Ball and socket.
Huh?
Ball and socket.
It's a really bad ball and socket joint. So why is it so bad? Okay, the hip's a ball and socket joint,
But I mean, a
That's
lot of
something
people have
to know.
problems with their hip too.
huh?
A lot of people have problems with.
You a lot of people have problems with the hip, but what's more common? In terms of
Shoulder.
dislocations and loose, I mean, other hip problems, degradation, osteoarthritis, those are huge. But what's more common, dislocation of the
Shoulder.
shoulder or the hip?
Shoulder.
The shoulder, they're both ball and socket joints, but what's the difference between
Well,
them?
one's
I guess
deeper.
one could move 360 degrees all the way around.
So, it's a give and take. Bigger the socket, the more stable the joint, right?
Mm-hmm.
The less movement you have. So you sacrifice stability in your elbow, right? You also done this in AP2 or AP1, right?
Mhm.
You sacrifice stability for movement.
Mm-hmm.
And the rotator cuff are a bunch of ligaments and muscles that are supposed to hold everything in place, right? But they can do what over time?
Wear down.
Wear down and get strained out. I had a friend who his was so bad that he would be walking down the street and his shoulder would just dislocate,
Oh.
just pop out. So they actually finally took a piece of his pelvis off the iliac crest and attached it as a little lip.
Just to keep it in there.
You can also go using synovial fluid and you just get that crepitus, the bone on bone.
Right, and then that's gonna lead to what later on too? Advanced osteoarthritis and breakdown of the bone and everything else. All right, I don't want to go through too much of that. Knee is gonna be what? Two big problems with the knee are gonna be dislocation. What else? What happens to football players a lot?
Miscarriages.
ACL, which is your what from AV1? Anterior cruciate what? Ligament, and what's the other one? Nice, very impressed, all right. How long do those take to heal? Forever, those could be career injuries, right? What's a meniscus? That little thing in the Erlenmeyer class you looked at, that little thing? What's a meniscus in your knee?
It's the cartilage.
And what's its job?
Makes it move smooth.
And cushioning and padding, right? Has anybody ever had a meniscus issue in here?
Yeah.
What happened to yours? We'll go back to front.
I tore mine playing football. Yeah.
Did you get surgery or what?
Yeah, I had to have surgery.
Surgery?
Repaired.
Yeah, but
Mine was a slight tear in football as well.
As well?
Yeah, it just swelled up.
but not torn, just swelling,
Yeah,
inflammation of it. What'd you do? Just steroids?
nothing.
Just nothing?
Yeah.
Just,
I just go through it. Like they put me on crutches and
yeah, but they want it. What about who else? How do you,
It was just a tear.
just the
There's
tear?
a tear at the meniscus, so it was holding liquid.
Yeah, what'd they do?
And they went in and cut it off.
They cut it off surgery?
It was a tear.
Tear? Oh, man, you guys are rough on your I had a little tear in mine too, so. Mine was just steroid shot. Did y'all do steroids or not?
I was in Mexico, so I didn't let them do anything.
They didn't. Mine actually, a friend of mine was a big surgeon, I think he took great joy in sticking a needle the size of a pencil lead into my knee to give me a steroid shot. Cause that hurt worse than the knee hurt. But mine hurt so bad, I couldn't even walk on it, it got so swollen and everything else. The steroid after the steroid, it was perfect. Like I said, it was worth it. Hip dislocation, we talked about that. When you talk about hip fractures, what are you talking about 99% of the time?
Either car crashes or old people.
Old people, yeah.
My kid was terrible. But what is, most of the time, what is actually breaking? This is what a lot of people have the wrong idea about a hip fracture. Is it usually the pelvis, the hip that breaks?
No.
No, what is it?
It's your
usually?
femur, right? It
Usually the head
separates.
of the femur, the ball that goes into the
Yeah.
socket. That's usually what you talk about when you talk about a broken hip. Most of the time, it's actually the head of the femur breaks off. Now, what's a big problem if you were to really break the pelvis actually up here?
Stability.
Stability would be part of it. Bone grows back pretty well, but you got a lot of blood supply going to that area too. You need a lot of
Yeah,
bleeding.
you gotta stabilize.
Well, yeah.
You can move around. And
And we'll get the stabilization.
That's why, like he was saying, car accidents.
Yeah.
That's why some people die from hip break and car accidents because they actually internally bleed out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the PAs, G-pads,
The which one?
those past G-pads.
Oh, okay, the stabilization? Yeah. We'll get to stabilization, I hope, we'll get into that. All right, healing process, repairs are accomplished by fibroblasts from the inner tendon sheath. Capillaries infiltrate the injured area during the initial healing process and formation of long collagen bundles, right? So could you see why if you started cooling this down, it actually kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Slowing
You can, like,
it down.
slowing down the healing process and everything else. So I don't know. It's gonna feel better, but you may be slowing down the what?
Healing
May
process.
take longer to heal. And usually, fortunately, most of soft tissue injuries, most of them, not all of them, usually when they go back to the original tensile strength, which means what? They're as good as new, right? If they're not too bad, if it's not a really bad tear or anything else like that. Usually, and if it's not a repetitive damage. All right, joint damage, limited ligamentous attachment occurs in which condition? Jeez.
Sprain.
Which one?
Sprain.
Brain?
B.
Good. All right, what is the difference between a broken bone and a fracture?
Isn't it the same?
I'm asking you.
It's the same thing.
Is it the same?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
You just usually think of a fracture as the bone still in
Intact.
place.
Yeah.
Same thing, actually. We're talking about the different types of fractures. Fracture
I was
is,
agreeing. I was
Yeah,
saying
no,
it's
no,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
thing, just we usually think of a fracture as the bone still in place where a break, like you can see.
you can see it, yeah.
But
And
they
then,
are the same.
they're the same thing. Break is just a layman's term for a fracture.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way it is. I got a big argument with somebody. I got another big argument. This guy wants to keep patrol too. I'm like, you don't want him to help me if I read. All right. Caused by sudden injury, stress fractures, pathologic fractures, we'll go into these. We'll talk about a couple of these when we get there. Location, proximal is gonna be where?
Closer to you.
To you?
Well,
So
to your,
If it was my,
Yeah.
to the midline, yeah.
proximal would be here?
No.
Just depending where.
Like up here, yeah, like depends on where you're.
What do you mean?
Distal is the furthest out.
Well, it would be proximal or distal, okay, in general, what would proximal be on this? I'm not saying to my shoulder or anything else.
Closer to the joint.
Huh?
Closer to the location of your body.
So this would be proximal, right?
Right,
Right, this would be,
distal.
no,
But
yeah.
it's still proximal to the elbow.
Mid shaft.
You guys got the clinician, not me. Times open or closed, and this is where I got a big argument with people about this kind of thing. Yeah, and that's what they were saying that, and I'll tell you all that. All right. Pattern of the fracture commutated, compression or green stick will go over these. I added some more in open versus closed. Okay. So I put this on here, I don't know if it's on yours or not.
Yeah,
Is it? Okay. So normal bone right here, that's normal. Transverse fracture is what?
like a real pretty straight one, right?
Break one all the way across and you get some.
But those aren't common, right? Transverse breaks?
Depends on what it's causing it. Sometimes they are. Usually not, but they can be. Do we have a compression? Do I have a compression fracture in here? We'll talk about that in a minute. Open compound, that's the same thing. That's why I got a big argument with this guy over. Compounded fracture is a fracture that breaks the skin.
Yeah,
The other term for it is an open fracture, right?
right.
They were also talking about displaced versus non-displaced, so we'll get to that in a sec. Okay? Oblique is gonna be this way. Oblique displaced now, what's the difference?
The bone's completely off.
Displaced, it's separated off, right? That's a displaced. A non-displaced would be what?
Oblique, like that.
This one right here. Okay? Commuted fracture is what?
It's a,
It's just
Shattered.
scattered all in little tiny pieces. Those are a pain because they don't wanna do what? It takes a while to heal on them sometimes.
what do they do there, rods?
Not so. If you can get everything nice and lined up, you can, we'll talk about how they do it open versus closed. Depends, a lot of times they grow back. I shattered my collarbone and it just feels like got rocks on top of it.
Yeah.
And it grew back. Segmental, again, obviously, I've never seen, oh, that's just the chip that comes off. What's a spiral fracture and what's a green stick fracture?
Spiral goes all the way around.
What? Not here, like,
Isn't a green stick when there's one bone still correct?
Isn't it with
and another one breaks off?
children? Children, right? Their
Nope.
bones are a little more.
green stick fracture, you ever got a piece of green wood? Wood. And it bends and then it finally does what? Like that, right? Does it come apart all the way?
No.
So when you move back together, it's gonna what?
Go back nicely.
It'll actually go back together. Green stick fracture are actually nice because they're really easy to set, usually, unless they get all kind of displaced a little bit. But it's when you don't get a complete break all the way across on it, it kind of goes like that.
I got a question, I guess. I have a fracture in my
Oh,
leg.
okay.
Mm.
Sorry.
Caused by stress
Huh?
fractures, and I don't really see it up there. I don't know what it would be classified as. Like it fractured in two spots, so almost like a segmental. The tip only went halfway through the bone. That piece shifted sideways.
Ooh, yeah. So that's gonna be a display, probably like a segmental, but with some displaced in it or something like that. I don't know. You probably have some combination. And again, these aren't gonna be all inclusive, right? You're gonna have some weird things like that that might not even have it anymore. It might be making it up like I just really did. Now, what's a spiral fracture?
Well, when it goes in a spiral.
What causes spiral fracture?
Twisting.
Twisting. So if you guys are clinicians and you see small children or spouses with spiral fractures, what's one of the first things that might want to pop in your mind?
Abuse?
Abuse and things like that, especially children. It's very easy to grab them. Now, does that mean you automatically call the police or anything? Of course not. But
Dr. Sivils told us that.
no. But that is one thing you guys probably, I'm assuming they're probably, that's the awareness you go through, that you see a lot of repeated spiral fractures, it usually has to do with twisting and stuff on there. It's not the only, it could be two kids horsing around. Well, man, don't get anybody arrested, people out there. All right, there's another one. What is a compression fracture?
It comes down
And what happens?
There's too much pressure.
like smashes, I guess.
Yeah.
It just compresses, right? And when it compresses, all that force has to go somewhere, it's gonna meet in the middle, and bam, it breaks apart. Now, what's a common compression fracture? I actually had one of those.
Whoa.
I didn't have any broken bones until I got 13, then I had like 6.
Oh my god.
Falling off.
Falling, real common, this happened to me, we were playing volleyball, I slipped, put my arm back, it hit straight on, it got a compression, straight across, straight across. Now, one of the problems with these transverse and those compression fractures, if it's a nice, super clean break, what can be a big problem with those? You think that would be good, right?
Yeah.
Lengthening,
Hmm?
the length.
Not the length,
It
that's
deals
the-
with the,
Just nothing all
coming back
so
together.
it slides.
You want to have some kind of rigidness so you can get that bone knitting. And sometimes when they get really nice and clean breaks like that, they tend to slide around a lot and everything else. It can actually cause more problems.
So they do pins in that case?
Yeah, I know a
Just to be
kid, when
safe?
he broke his in football, he had a compression fracture, the fracture nice and clean. They actually put him all the way up, cast all the way up here. Because
Just
they
to
didn't
keep
want
it
him moving at all.
straight. Oh. My husband broke both of his wrists when he was younger, and he didn't know why, but they had put him off. But that's probably why, because it was compression fracture.
Yeah, that's what he didn't have it either.
Yeah,
didn't
so
know
he
for a
had
while.
both
Oh, yeah, both.
full cast. Yeah.
What it is,
Compound.
compounded fracture. Those can be deadly too. If you have a compounded fracture in your femur, what can be the problem?
You lose blood or.
Blood
It can bleed out
loss.
pretty quick, right? That femur already have.
Infection.
All right. Sure that's all you guys?
No.
You guys have no empathy out there. Oh.
No, I mean you feel bad they're in pain, but you want to fix it. I want to go in there and.
His ankle was out of my was like he just popped all over the
Oh, yeah, some of it, yeah. All right, pain. Does the bone itself hurt? When I had this boxer fracture, it hurt, it felt like, because the bone hurt.
The nerves
Like
that
that,
the
snap, it's not gonna hurt?
yeah, isn't it the nerves that are
What is it, guys? Y'all should remember this, man, P1, this is a review.
The muscle?
Nope.
isn't it the nerves that are attached
Well,
to
that's
the
always
bones?
nerve,
But-
that's kind of my point, though, what am I talking about?
Inflammation?
The periosteum. Did your bone is solid, right?
Yeah.
Calcium phosphate for the most part. So on the outside, you have the periosteum, so it's actually the nerves in the periosteum that hurt. If they get through it, the bone doesn't hurt, the bone itself doesn't hurt, but periosteum hurts. All right. Tenderness of the side of the disruption, swelling, loss of function, and deformity of the affected part, abnormal mobility, but these are all gonna be dependent on what?
The type of
The
fracture.
type and degree of the fracture, right? If you just have a nice little transverse fracture, they're gonna probably have any of these, I mean, you'll have swelling, don't get me wrong, but are you gonna lose function?
No,
Probably not.
sometimes.
You're gonna have deformity affected area,
Probably not.
you get bone remodeling. All right. Oh my gosh. All right, 3 objects, the treatment of fractures. Reduction of the fracture is what? Close manipulation. And this is what I'm talking about now. Even if you have the commuted one. Close manipulation is what? Traction, pressure, no incision. That's just where they do what? Put a cast on it later, but what do you have to do first?
traction on it, pull it back. Sort of.
Yeah, what are you doing? What's the layman's term for that?
Just line it back up. Yeah.
Putting it back in place, right?
What's the term that you hear for it, right? They're gonna do blank to the broken bone.
Setting it.
Setting the bone, setting the fracture. This is where you're just gonna get it apart, try and get everything to get back in together and line up nice, right? Traction if you have to, depending on the type. Traction a lot of times is where you have a lot of femur, you've got a lot of muscle attached to it, and it's not gonna wanna stay where it's supposed to stay. Surgical reduction is gonna be what? That's gonna be pins, screws,
Okay.
anywhere they have to get inside you and surgically repair the bone. Now, what do they do? Have you seen this one here, how so let's say you have what you were born with a congenital leg that's shorter than the other one.
Oh, they break them.
So how can they fix that?
They break them so that you get the bone remodeling.
Traction and allow it to fuse together.
Have y'all ever seen that?
Yeah.
So it's a little, I can't draw, I would draw it. There's no bone, it's got like a cage around it, and they put the pins in here. They actually break it, but do they break it and pull it real far apart?
No, it's like 1 millimeter.
Yeah, and then like, they do what?
Once it grows, they can break it.
No, they try not to re-break it when it starts to grow, because remember it's gonna start growing inward,
So they turn the traction so
and it pulls it apart a little bit more, and then it grows, and it pulls it apart a little more until you get to the right length. Immobilization is gonna be what? Splints and casts. That's immobilization. See how this one will be a lot nicer terminology than flat stuff.
I like it.
Preservation and restoration of function, physical therapy, PT. Anybody here gonna be PT, anything? You all right? Were you gonna be?
Oh, wait, what? Oh, I think you
My
meant-
brother used to do
No.
PT? Physical
I
therapy?
meant like,
You? Weren't you gonna go for that? No?
no, I thought you said that whenever.
Oh, had PT. I thought somebody, one of my students was gonna be, wanted to do PT. Okay, never mind. I think never mind. Alright, so this is bone remodeling, this is what happens, this is bone repair. Within hours after the fracture, what's gonna, first thing that's gotta start?
Blood.
You're gonna clot the blood, you gotta get the blood clot on the outside, that's a hematoma. Why is it a hematoma and not a bruise?
It's localized.
You've got a bunch of blood flowing into the tissue, right? It's not just the vessels breaking right there. Good. Now the cartilaginous callus starts to form on the outside. You start getting more vascularization coming in here to feed it. And then you're gonna get osteoblasts. And what do osteoblasts do?
Create bone.
They create bone, right? So they're gonna come out and start laying down new bone, right?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm just looking at
Or is it really?
Now you get this bony callus, and then what is bone remodeling?
What if you use this together? Right?
Does that make a model of your bone so you can put it in there? So it looks like your bone? No, what is it?
Healing.
Yeah, that's right. So you get all this bony callus out here, and ideally, remodeling is gonna try and get it back as close as it was to everything else. And remember, your bones can remodel all the time. If you change the stress that's put on them, they'll do what?
Reshape.
Where up?
She said reshape.
Yeah, so you get bone remodeling. All right, just checking. All right, factors. Why patients age?
Children, they heal faster and.
Older
Oh,
people
yeah.
just what? Osteoporosis is gonna decrease healing time. Just being old is gonna decrease healing time. Kids, how long does it take average for a broken bone to get fixed?
6 weeks? Oh,
About
8
six plus or minus you can get. It's gonna, again, that's all gonna depend, right? If it's a bone that's got a lot of motion on it, it's gonna take what?
longer.
Longer. If you break the tarsal in your foot, how long can that take to heal? Just an average. It's gonna heal faster or slower than, say, a broken arm. Which one?
It's the same,
The same?
but they're not.
So you got this nice broken bone in your foot right
It
here.
might be slower to decrease blood flow, well, that's blood flow, right?
But if this is immobilized in a cast, it's pretty immobilized, right?
And you can't really.
You immobilize the foot in the cast, even no matter what you're doing, you're still putting what on it constantly. Still putting some pressure on those. Some of those foot injuries can take a long time to heal. And now they like to put them in boots sometimes, it even takes longer. Current medication.
Oh, yeah.
NSAIDs and corticosteroids.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back to that one in a second, actually. Debilitating diseases, things like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune what? Attack on the joints, so if you've got that attack on those joints, it can take longer to what?
Heal.
Heal. How about diabetes? Why would that do it?
Blood flow.
A lot of it could be blood flow. Diabetes should mess up all kinds of things. Local stressor on the fracture side, I already talked about that one. Circulatory problems in general. Low blood supply, slower healing time. Coagulation disorders, you're not gonna get what? That's
Clotting.
clotting and everything else starting. Poor nutrition. What does that lead to? What's that whole big bad thing with poor nutrition, especially calcium?
You can make bone remodeling, it's not gonna be.
You gotta have all the right stuff, right? All the components in there to make this. You gotta have good diet, good calcium-rich diet, vitamin D, phosphates, and this also can contribute back up to what we talked about here.
Age.
Age, osteoporosis, right? All those come around. Okay, what drug, back to the drugs, which one are you talking about?
NSAIDs and corticosteroids.
Insects, corticosteroids are really bad. What do corticosteroids start to do to your bone after a while?
Well, it decreases the blood flow, so it slows down the rate.
Your bones actually starts to deteriorate, can start to deteriorate. In particular, what do you think is probably the first one that gets affected in these people? Think about it, you gotta really think like clinicians.
The first bone.
Which area? So it's gonna be systemic, right? We're taking corticosteroids, right?
Well, I mean, what I know about corticosteroids is that they start to suppress your immune system, right?
Yeah.
And they affect your heart.
But we're talking about bone in particular.
Yeah, I know,
If you
so-
damage bone, so think about systemic, so it can be anywhere, right?
Yeah,
Where do you think these people really start having a lot of problems?
joints.
But where in particular?
Ugh.
For long term, it can be spine, but that's long term.
Why? Why
You
above
start
other
getting
ones?
lots of bone density up in the
Bone
joints, there
density.
will be a problem. But early on, what do you think the first one is? You guys have problems,
Their hands?
huh? Nope,
Knees?
nope.
Hips.
Hips. They start having a lot of problems with their hips. I have a from my old, I don't know, I'm gonna say that, somebody forgot who that is. Somebody I know has been on steroids for breathing problems almost their entire life. They are 41 years old and they're going in for hip replacement
Oh.
because they've had so much damage to the steroids. All right, complications, loss of skeleton, continuity, injuries of bone fragments, from bone fragments, those loose bones. We got 9 minutes. Pressure from swelling and hemorrhage, fracture blisters, compartment syndrome. What is compartment syndrome?
It's when the blood, compartment is overflowed with blood, the muscle expands with the car.
Good.
It doesn't, so it feels like a huge
Right.
cramp.
Good. Y'all hear that?
Yeah.
You can get nerve damage too whenever you damage a bone, so reflex sympathetic dystrophy or development of fat emboli. How does that happen?
It happens with big bones, like femur, right?
Usually.
I can't remember.
When it breaks off into maybe synthetic.
Your bloodstream?
What is your yellow bone marrow mainly?
Fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get a nice big break in there, you can actually have some of this stuff break off and travel within the body. All right, 8 minutes.
Go, go, go.
Go, 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 go.
Do it.
Okay, all right, here, I want to do this because bone infections or osteomyelitis. I want to get through this. Microorganisms introduced during an injury. Okay?
Yeah.
You fall down, you break something, it gets compounded, you get microorganisms introduced in there, you get massive bone infection, right? Microorganisms introduced during operative procedures. This would be an iatrogenic one, right? Microorganisms for the bloodstream. This would be bacteremia or septicemia. Either way, do you want osteomyelitis?
No.
No. You get proliferation of the microorganisms, right? They're growing in there. If they're growing, they're probably going to be causing cell death no matter what type of